if I told you that everything that you're hearing right now came from this violin? Some of you may recall me making a video in 2018 about synthesizing my violin with a pedal called the Meris Enzo. It's gonna sound a little bit like this. And that pedal has become a total workhorse in my pedal board. I've used it at several hundred shows over the past 7 years, and it's completely changed how I approach my electric violin. But today, 7 years later, we're gonna talk about the upgrade. Today we're going to be talking about the Meris Enzo X, which is a modular instrument synthesizer that also has multi-effects, pitch shifting, modulation, and a whole slew of other features. Its original claim to fame is that you can take audio and synthesize it, and that's how I've been using it with my violin, is I've been creating these like blended synthesized tones that I've been using in my workflow for years now. But now it has this crazy new feature that I think expands its capabilities so much more, which is that now you can control it with a MIDI keyboard, and it's a standalone desktop synthesizer. So today I'm going to be demoing the primary modes with both the violin and with the keyboard, and I'm going to try not to talk too much and just let the pedal do the talking. But the primary modes are the mono synth, poly synth, Arp mode, and then the dry modes. And then I will even talk about an extra software goodie at the end of the video. Before we get into the demo, I just do want to shout out Meris for reaching out to me and making this video possible. This is a very full circle moment because honestly, the Meris Enzo video that I did in 2018 was my first video of that kind, doing gear demos, and basically just turning me into a huge nerd. So when they told me that the Enzo was getting an upgrade, I totally geeked, because I am not kidding you when I tell you that I have used the Meris Enzo in every single one of my shows for the past 7 years. I just feel really grateful to be able to work with them. I'm so excited to talk about this pedal with you today, and hopefully you geek out on it as much as I do. So I just want to get into a general overview of the big upgrades from the last pedal before we get into those patches. And the first thing that you'll notice is that this is overall just a larger pedal. It's got a whole digital interface, it's got a lot more knobs, and it's got more foot switches. So let's get into the menu diving here, because this is where the biggest change is, obviously, is that we have this digital interface that allows us to go into all of this menu diving, and it's everything from oscillator info to filters to envelopes to multi-effects to modifiers and sequencers. And in the event that I want to edit a shortcut here, what I can do is I can hold this button down, go over here, and then I can, let's just say that I want it to be the overall mix. And then to save that change, I just hold it down, and boom, there it is. Now it's a saved patch. So it just makes it super, super easy. There are 4 different knobs that are going to be the same parameters every single time, which is your pitch shifter, your filter, your modulation, and your overall level. There are also now new foot switches, and what's cool about this is that you can sift through banks now. So I can go up and down in the banks by double-clicking these, or going down by double-clicking these. And if I want to select one of these patches, let's say I wanted to go to patch 18, I'm going to go like that and then select the one that's all the way to the right, and now I'm on that patch. So what this means is that I have all kinds of presets at my disposal on demand whenever I want. And that's a huge upgrade from the Enzo, the original Enzo, because up until this point you could only save presets with a preset bar, which is what I use all the time, but I was only ever able to save 4 presets at a time. So with this, I have 99 presets with me at all times. So this is already like a huge, huge thing for live performances. Additionally, we have a tuner. And we also have a foot switch that is a hold modifier, which means that there are some patches that have like LFOs that are mapped to that. So if you hold it, it'll go up a ramp, like all kinds of cool stuff. It's actually like sky's the limit on that one. That's kind of the general MO with this whole pedal. So anyway, those are kind of the big differences between the last Enzo and this Enzo. This is the big boy version. We have entered big boy territory with this pedal. All right. Let's get into some sounds. So the first mode that we're talking about today is mono synth mode, and this is the mode that I actually probably use the most. It's the mode that generates only one voice at a time, and it works really, really well for leads. So for example, I have it on the preset Moody Mono. So sick! This is another mono synth patch, the OG Enzo Mono, and I feel like this one you'll be able to recognize that classic Enzo sound. And so let's take a patch like this and just get into some details. I'm going to use the primary 3 out of the 4 knobs here. So like I said, these patches are endlessly customizable. So if I went in here and changed the oscillation shapes, and I'll never get over how much I love that video game sound. The primary 3 wave shapes that the Enzo uses are a saw wave, a square wave, and a triangle wave, and you can blend the 2 oscillators to create all kinds of combinations of those 2. And you can also get into the filter panels and also get just really detailed about how you want those oscillators to sound. This one is one of my favorites. As you're going to hear on this patch, you can do things like mapping LFOs. For instance, this one, it has a LFO mapped to a square wave mapped to the pitch, which is why it's jumping up and down like that. And you can also hear the onboard reverb and ambiance, which I think sounds amazing. Listen to how smooth that is. So let's talk about polysynth mode, which is another one of the synth modes that engages the onboard oscillators, but this time it can generate up to 6 voices, which is super cool. And albeit, I will say it is a little bit more designed for guitars, literally even when you think about how it's like 6 voices, 6 strings. But it's really cool on violin too. Check this out. So in the event that I wanted to play a chord on the violin, let's find another one. So here's where it gets really crazy, is that I actually have this connected via MIDI. I have a Mio MIDI to USB interface. I have my Launch Key 49 also hooked up via USB to Ableton, and I'm using the external instrument feature on Ableton to route the signal, so that if I play the keys, I can use it as a 6-voice polyphonic synthesizer. So if we find another patch here, polystab, that sounds good. And I can use, for instance, all of these parameters straight from the pedal, but also it automatically connects to things like pitch shift and the modulation. Limitless possibilities. It literally just is a synth. All right, let's keep the nerd train going. Let's talk about Arp Mode. So let's talk about Arp Mode, because I think it's one of those really, really fun modes that Meris is just like, they're just putting so much character into this pedal. And the way that this works is that it is a polyphonic setting that is detecting your audio input, it's listening for the chords that you're playing, and then it is creating sequences based off of those chords that you're playing. So if I play this C chord, and I think it's just like a really cool thing to put underneath the signal that you're playing. It adds a really cool texture to what you're doing. But once again, one of the really cool things about these modes is that you can also trigger them with a MIDI keyboard. And I think in my personal experience, I am yielding cleaner results from that. But that's also, it makes sense because MIDI is literally like the cleanest digital signal that you can possibly get, because it's just note information. So if I trigger this on the violin, sounds like this. That classic Enzo Arp sound. So if you want to edit the type of arpeggiation it is, you first make sure that you are in Arp Synth mode on the oscillator panel, and then you go over to the next page, and then there's the Arp mode. So right now it's set to Enzo mode, which prioritizes the sequence based off of the volume of the input, but you can also have it set to up, and you can have it set to down, and you can have it set to up, down. This might be a good opportunity to talk about some of the ambiance stuff going on, because right now you can hear it's on an echo. But I can switch it over to a small prism, medium prism, large prism. Okay, let's go on to the dry modes. Of course my neighbors are doing construction, 'cause that's LA, that's LA. So let's talk about dry modes, because the dry modes are actually super clutch and I use them all the time. Half of my presets are dry mode presets. And what that means is that you're just not using the oscillators in that sound designing sculpting, and you're using the other effects like pitch shifting, like the modulations, like the drive, like the ambience, all of that good stuff. So here is a preset called Dry Fretless Sub. It literally makes my violin sound like a cello in a hall. Again, dry modes are a really good example of everything that this pedal does that does not include just the synth oscillators and the sequencers. I mean, and you can sequence with the dry modes, but it's everything. It's all of the modulation parameters from flanger to chorus to vibrato. You have all these different types of drives, including tube drives and 8-bit crushed kind of sounds. You have the ambiance of the echo, which is a stereo echo, and all these different size prism rooms, which are so gorgeous and kind of remind me of the Mercury 7 type reverbs, which are so gorgeous and just so smooth and lush. And of course the pitch shifting as well. So this is just super, super useful. Again, I use dry modes like half the time in my live setting. And now I'm really excited because now I have a bunch of different types of dry presets as well as the synth presets that I can just sift through with the banks right there with my feet. It's amazing. I'm so excited. Well, right now I'm not using my feet. I'm using my hands, but that's for the video. Okay, moving on. So it's actually crazy how much you can do with this pedal, but there's actually more on the way. There's another feature coming very soon, and I have the beta version of it, which is the Meris Predator, which is their software editor. I like this part. Get to the chopper. And they have Predator available for the Mercury X and the LVX, and the version for the Enzo X is coming very soon. And it's basically just like a software editor for your patches, your libraries, your banks, all kinds of organization. It looks like this, which I think is just so, the UI is so clean and wonderful. You can have multiple libraries stored, so in the event that you are using this for different types of tours, for instance, you can have different libraries with different banks organized for those tours, which I think is just fabulous if you're an MD. So there's also this categories feature, which allows you to edit all of your presets from your computer, and you have things from your oscillator panel to your filter envelope, amplitude envelope, all of it. So you can design and edit your presets from your computer, and then you can export them into your hardware. You can also export the file and upload it to a site like Patch Storage. And what's amazing about this, I'm a huge fan of Patch Storage because it basically creates a whole community of people who are creating patches for devices like this, and you can download other people's patches as well as upload your own patches, and then it becomes just like a whole community of patch sharing. This is just a brief overview of the software. It'll be coming out very soon, so just keep your eyes peeled. So that is the Enzo X, which is just such a huge upgrade from the original Enzo, and I am such a big fan of Meris, and I always have been, and that's like how I got into gear demos in the first place, is because I loved the Enzo so much. So I was so happy when they reached out to talk about this one and to, you know, get this campaign rolling. I think it's an amazing bang for your buck because you're getting so many different features in one, which includes basically getting a synth. You're getting a desktop synth that you can control with a MIDI controller, and it's just opening up the possibilities. I mean, I'm already thinking about it from like a live music perspective. It's just going to be such a weapon for live performance. So again, thank you so much, Meris, for making this possible. And yeah, let me know what y'all think of this. Is this something that you think you could use with your instruments? Is this something that you would use just as a synthesizer alone? Let me know in the comments below. In terms of other announcements, again, I'm going to be on the road with Daily Bread for a brief leg of tour next month. I have some really fun stuff in the works for y'all. Make sure you join the Discord, follow on Instagram, all that good stuff. And yeah, I will see you guys in the near future. Happy nerding! All right, bye.